Okay, it is good to see everybody here and to get started. Um, I I always wonder about the power of the Torah reading and how things connect with the real world. So we're reading today the story of Korach, an armed rebellion against Moses. And clearly, when the Torah was put together, there was knowledge that during this same period, Russia would face armed rebellion, and the Sedra ties in completely with the world around us. It's one of those everyday miracles, and it's good to see everybody. I want to do, Stacy, before we get to things, I want to do quick calendar. Current events class, Wednesday, June 28th. Wednesday, June 28th. And then please remember that we will have current events July 12th and 26th. So we're set through July, and the 26th, a Wednesday, that evening is also Tisha B'Av. So we can get all of our calendars put together in that fashion. So that's good. So June 28th, current events. July 12th and 26th, current events. Evening of the 26th, Tisha B'Av. July 10th, it is one of those grand moments in the flow of human history. Apparently, book orders for my book number 3 will be available on July 10th. I don't really believe it, but that's what I'm told. So I am looking forward to that. And hopefully when we sell more than 35 books, I will be able to retire on the income, and that'll be lovely. Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Yeah.
Please, what's coming up?
On Tuesday, members of my board are going to the Glazer campus to meet with the head of Karsh to discuss what Sisterhood can do once Karsh reopens at the Resnick campus. We just kind of want to see what would be available and do some planning and for the future. And Friday, we're having our Shabbat dinner at Froman's. All of you are welcome to come to join us at 6 o'clock. You just have to let Susie know so she can let the restaurant know how many seats to have. But they're very accommodating. We do a little Shabbat service with hamotzi and candles and wine, and the individual checks, so there's no complications. And we'd love to have all of you there and meet you in person.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Is Jim here? I didn't see Jim yet. About the movies. Well, maybe he'll join us in a bit. Okay, Stacy.
Yes, Rabbi, I just wanted to tell you I have to leave early at 9:30. I didn't want you to think anything, negative about the Chevra Torah, but I'm going to the Connections program later this morning. So, I wanted to have some Chevra Torah rather than no Chevra Torah. So I just wanted to alert you to that. Okay,
thank you very, very much. Risa also will be. When do you jump off, Risa? I think that there's a bar mitzvah that you're joining, whatever.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. It is so good to see everybody. Okay, so here we are, the story of Korach. It is a famous story. It is a good story. We're going to be Numbers chapter 16, verse 19 and following in the Plout 1004. 1004. The story of Korach is well known. Everybody knows the story of Korach. Korach, a member of the tribe of Levi, says to Moses, to Aaron, you take too much upon yourselves. We are all able to be leaders. and is a direct challenge to the authority and the unique authority of Moses and of Aaron. A leadership challenge, so that over the centuries that I've been preaching on this is a time when you talk about leadership. What is leadership? How does it work? And, we're not going to do that today so much, but it is a time to look at leadership. There is a classic statement about this controversy. We've said it before, but I'm going to put it out again just because it is universally known. Quote, every controversy that is pursued in a heavenly cause is destined to be perpetuated. It's funny, I wrote in a heavenly cause.
I like that.
No, well, let's leave it heavenly. And that which is not pursued in a heavenly cause is not destined to be perpetuated. What is a controversy pursued in a heavenly cause? The controversies between Hillel and Shammai. Not pursued in the heavenly cause, controversy of Korach and his congregation. So Jewish tradition regards the challenge of Korach and his followers to be an illegitimate assault on the legitimate authority, power, position of Moses and of Aaron. Okay, Howard, I see a question. Yes.
I think it might be not a coincidence that we're talking about this today when we read about what's going on in Russia with challenge to authority, and it might be a very pivotal thing.
There is no such thing as a coincidence. This was put into play at the time of creation, and it's just unfolding in front of us. So there we go. Of course, it's interesting, isn't it? And armed challenges to authority happen in this country, happen in all kinds of places. And let's be blunt, there's all kinds of stuff going on in Israel too, challenge to authority. So yeah, the world is filled with that. Let's go, because there's so much good stuff here. Let's go to page 1004, verse 16. Moses said to Korach, tomorrow you and your company appear before God, you, they, Aaron. Each of you take a fire pan, lay incense on it. Each of you bring that fire pan before the Eternal. 250 fire pans. That was the core group of the rebels. You and Aaron, and so Moses and Aaron, bring your fire pans. So they each took their fire pan, put fire in it, laid incense, took a place at the entrance, the tent of meeting. Korach, gathered the whole community against them at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So the rabbis say, wait a second. God says, tomorrow, bring your fire pans. I'm going to work a miracle and show who the winners are. And then it says, Korah gathered the whole community against them. The Midrash says, God said, gather the next morning. So what was Korah doing that night? And the rabbis create this incredible story of Korah going from tent to tent, Korah and his followers, spreading fake news about the overthrow of Moses. So Korah understood that he wouldn't win unless he had the people behind him. And how do you do that? You don't wait for things to develop. You make things develop. So Korah sleepless night, knocking on, I don't know, can you knock on the door of a tent? Knocking on the doors of the tents, telling people how bad Moses and Aaron are and how much better for them Korach will be. Okay, so he's agitated. They give Korach a speech. See if this sounds familiar. Korach says, do you think that I care for myself alone? Am I doing this for my self-aggrandizement? It's only for all of you that I have a care. How do you like that? Right? It's only for you. I'm doing it for you. Support me because supporting me is supporting you. That's great. These men, Moses and Aaron, come and occupy every high office. They take royal ranks for themselves. They take the priesthood for themselves. And how did the people respond to the fake news? The rabbis asked. They swallowed it whole. So he was able to organize large numbers of the Israelites against Moses and against Aaron. I wrote a very important line here in my notes. There is nothing new in politics. Absolutely nothing new. Korach did what people do. Then the presence of the Eternal appeared to the whole community. The Eternal One spoke, Moses and Aaron, stand back, and I'm going to annihilate all of those who were opposed to you. What did Moses and Aaron do? They fell on their faces and they pleaded for mercy for the people. And then they say something interesting. They fell on their faces and said, "O God, source of the breath of all flesh, when one member sins, will you be wrathful with the whole community?" The Hebrew is El Elohei Haruchot, one of the designated names for God. You may ask me, well, Stan, how often is that phrase used in the Torah? Twice. Just twice. Just twice. If we look at page 1080, you can just kind of flip over there. On page 1080, Moses, that would be Numbers 27:15. Moses spoke to the Eternal, saying, "Let the Eternal One, source of the breath of all flesh, appoint an envoy," and so forth. Verse 18, and the Eternal One answered Moses, "Single out Joshua, son of Nun, and lay your hand upon him." That is one of the most interesting phrases for Christian readers of the Torah in the whole Torah. Standard Christian interpretation has God calling for the establishment of Jesus as the leader of the people based upon that phrase. Now, because I'm in a good mood and everyone loves to win a lottery, what connects that 1080 passage to Jesus?
The name.
What?
Joshua. Yeshua.
Joshua, Yeshua, that could be, and you're really close. According to Christian Bible interpretation, Joshua's full name, Yehoshua ben Nun, is a reference to Jesus. How do we know that? Because the word Nun could be translated as fish, and fish is one of the symbols of Christianity. So clearly, Joshua, son of the fish of Jesus, and the whole thing validates the Christian interpretation of the Torah. If I've convinced you, well, okay. But it is a fascinating thing. You will check Google. Christian Bible commentators love the phrase, "O God, source of the breath of all flesh." And then the next passage when it's used to bring Jesus directly into the Torah. Any questions?
Yeah, where did the name Jesus come from? His name was Yeshua. How did they get Jesus?
It is a name not unusual in the Second Temple period. Not unusual.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Jesus, Yeshua, not unusual. I see, let's see, Stacy?
Yes. Rabbi, is there any particular significance to the fact that that God's name only appears twice under, that particular designation only appears twice? Is there any significance to that?
I can't answer that question, Tamara. Is there anything? It just is. That phrase designating a name for God only appears twice in the Torah. And it is a richly suggestive name. Elohei Haruchot, the God of the winds, of the spirits, of breath. Very interesting. But I mean, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of names of God. This is just one of the rare ones. Okay, so we're going to continue, but I hope that you will remember Elohei Kol HaRuchot, the God of the spirits of all flesh. Very interesting phrase. The Eternal One spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the community and say, withdraw from the houses of Korach, Datan, and Abiram." I want to mention, we have done this before a number of years ago. I checked my notes, that the story of Korach is really an interwoven story. There are several leadership challenges stories that seem to have been woven together. And the key is Datan and Abiram. I'm not going to go through the text, but there is a Datan and Abiram thread, and there is a Korach thread, and the editors apparently interwove the threads to make it appear to be one. The problem is they don't do it consistently, so it kind of sticks out. It sticks out, but for us, it may be not important. Moses rose and went to Datan and Abiram, the elders following him. What was Moses' approach to push back the rebellion? What did he do? What did he do? The first thing was to pull God back from absolute destruction of all the people. The second thing was to form a coalition with the leadership of the people. And so when he went to challenge Datan, Abiram, Korach for their challenge of him, he didn't go there alone. He went there with a large group of people, and they stood with him. Moses rose, went, elders of Israel following. He addressed the community. Whoa! Move away from the tents of these wicked fellows, touch nothing, lest you be wiped out for all their sins. What is Moses saying? What is he saying to them at that point? Very interesting. Don't go to plunder the tents of those who will be punished for the rebellion against God. There are various other times in biblical literature when the plundering of a defeated enemy becomes a moral issue. And here, God makes it very clear. Don't profit. Now, yeah, I am reminded of the thousands of stories post-World War II of residents of Poland and Germany and so forth, who, after the Jews were exterminated, moved in and took their property and set themselves up in those homes. And now it's 2 generations, 3 generations of occupying those homes.
Mm.
What is being said here is, don't profit from the overthrow of God's enemies. I saw a hand. Sukasa, was that you? Yes.
Don't the Palestinians say the same thing about occupying the homes in Jerusalem? The argument you just raised?
Answer, yes.
Yeah. So it just depends who's telling the story, how one interprets it.
Yeah.
I remember we lived very close to Emek Raphaim. We had a great shopping restaurant area in Jerusalem. And we became aware of the houses that were in fact Arab occupied, owned, and that now are part of one of Israel's major shopping streets and living streets and stuff like that. Sukasa, you raised a devilishly hard, devilishly hard question. See, in the United States, we didn't have to worry about that because we moved all Native Americans into reservations and then could have all the rest of their land for ourselves. That was a much more humane way of doing things. So defeated people who abandoned, suffer great loss. The text here is saying, no one should profiteer from a rebellion against God. Does it happen in Jewish history, in American history, in world history? Any thoughts? I mean, the answer is, of course, yes. Of course, yes. Thank you for that. It just left me totally uncomfortable. Good. And any other comments on that? We're going to go forward unless there are comments.
Herman.
Okay, Howard.
Harmon.
You said the United States. Go ahead, Howard. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Howard.
I was in a room with Mahmoud Abbas a number of years ago before he was the head of the PA, and he talked about his home in Haifa, and he certainly didn't say anything about we should not profit from it and leave it alone. He talked about coming back and grabbing it for himself.
Abbas walks around with a key around his neck,
Yeah, there you go.
uh,
We talked about that.
with the supposedly whatever the key to the home from which his family had fled.
In Haifa.
Okay. There is no just way to balance with equity and fairness after a war. What if I would say to you that the Polish people who moved into Jewish houses had no right to do that? Is the better right to leave the property abandoned? Is that the correct thing? I can't answer. I can just struggle with you.
It's time to move on. It's another generation, several generations.
It's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Moving on is difficult. I don't know if any of you are aware. Does the name Sackler strike a bell? Do you remember the name Sackler?
What about Millikan?
One of the major medical schools in Israel, in Tel Aviv, is the Sackler Medical School. And just this week, the name Sackler was removed from the medical school with the agreement of the Sackler family. And of course, the university was really happy because having sold to the Sacklers naming rights to the medical school, now they can sell the naming rights to the medical school again. And they're going to do that. It doesn't mean that they return the money for the naming rights to the Sacklers. They kept the money.
They keep the money.
And renamed it. There was an incident in the Jewish Theological Seminary when Milken money, large amounts of Milken money, went to the Jewish Theological Seminary, and they had items named for the Milken family, library, other places. And the good news is that when the Milkens, or at least Michael, was involved in what was called then insider trading, the Jewish Theological Seminary righteously removed the name from off the building and righteously didn't return a penny. And how do you fix history? You know, all the struggles with the Civil War monuments being torn down or moved in the South. How do you change history? Living in Atlanta, one of the great memorials is a mountain into which is carved Confederate figures.
Stone Mountain.
Pardon?
Stone Mountain.
It's now a very big tourist site. And they're not going to uncarve those Confederate figures from the mountain. How do you fix history? How do you fix history? So Datan, Aviram, the others, people were told, don't profiteer off of their defeat. Now, Datan and Aviram had come out and they stood at the entrance of their tents with their wives, children, little ones. You know that I love to play with the Hebrew. When it says Datan and Aviram went out standing at the entranceway, they don't say omdim. That would be kind of like the usual word for standing. They said nitzavim. So the rabbis immediately jump on that and say, not only were these rebels standing in front of their tents, proudly defying God, Moses, and Aaron, but they were nitzavim. They were standing erect and arrogant and challenging the status quo. And Moses said, now you're going to know that God sent me to do this. How? This is fun. If these people die a usual death, then God didn't send me. But if they die an unusual death, then God sent me. If these people's death is of my own, is that of all humankind, if the lot is humankind's common fate, it's not God. But if the eternal brings about something unheard of, listen to this. So that the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive to Sheol, then you'll know that God punished them. Jim, we are on page 1005. In the text, we are in Numbers 16, verses 27, 28, something like that. Scarcely had he finished speaking when the ground under Datan, Aviram, Korach, etc., burst asunder. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, all of their households, all of their possessions. They went down alive into Sheol with all that belonged to them. Then the earth closed over them, and they vanished. What do you make of this? What do you make of this? Cindy's shaking her head. What do you make of this?
A lot of innocent people died. God can be very revengeful.
Revengeful.
Any other comments? Any other comments?
Rabbi, I just want to say something Moshe used to teach, like my main recipes. He was a Messianic Jew, and he used to teach about the the 18 million men Chinese army that was going to get swallowed up by coming against Israel, that was going to come, that the Lord was going to open up the earth and eat them for breakfast, for attacking Israel. It's one of those things that he believed. Anyway, I just wanted, because you're talking about them, how that happened here. That made me think of that.
Okay, thank you for that. Cindy's concern is pretty accurate. It wasn't just adult men and women. It wasn't just the followers, the active followers of Korach. It was all those people whom Korach had convinced the night before. Large numbers of people died, but how did they die? They were swallowed up. And that leads to one of my favorite midrashim, which portrays Korach as standing at the gateway to the land of the dead, telling everybody who comes in, Moses and the Torah are correct, I'm a liar. And that's what Korach does for all eternity. Now, listening to our world, don't get me talking about today, but listening to our world today, wouldn't that be a great punishment for those who spread lies in society, to be able to stand forever at the gates of hell, saying to everybody who entered, you know, I'm a liar, and the Torah is true. I just think that that's pretty good. But Rashi has a problem here. Children. And I'm going to read this. Come and see how grievous a sin dissension is. For a human tribunal does not punish a person, here's interesting, before he shows signs of puberty. Rashi is saying that you can't apply the same laws to adults as to children until they show signs of puberty. Okay? So until that happens, these kids should not have been punished. Some, Rashi said, go so far as to say, you don't punish kids until they're 20 years old. It's not right. But here, even babies at the breasts of their mothers were killed. What's Rashi saying to us here? What's he saying? Please, okay?
The innocent need to be protected, the innocent
Merle,
children.
I see Merle. Thank you.
Sorry,
that
Rabbi.
that kids can't think for themselves yet. Why should they be abused or hurt, punished?
I agree.
Oh, some people's brains are not developed, even when they're adults. People on the spectrum, people have brain injuries, their brains are not developed until a certain age, even not at all. Capiche?
Yeah,
I'm not even sure they're developed at puberty.
The sins of the parents can be on the children.
okay, I'm not going to go to child rearing because, you know, when it says, first of all, puberty is advancing nowadays. Kids are entering puberty at 10, 11, 12, whatever. So, you know, the good news is they can get serious punishment. But
I'm still a kid.
what is the big problem with Korach and this challenge? What is it that the rabbis and even the authors of Torah found so reprehensible? What's going on?
Was Korah want power for himself, or did he care about the public's welfare? You know what I mean?
You're focusing in the right area. What is, Rebecca says, what about juvenile courts? As far as I know, by the way, I never heard of juvenile courts within the ancient Judaic judicial system.
Mhm.
But, okay, what's the crime? And it's important for us to grasp this. Why is this so terrible? Why?
I listened
May I
to
say, Rabbi?
Eric?
I listened to Rabbi Buchtel's sermon last night. She was saying, according to my memory, they wanted power, not they weren't concerned with the welfare of the people. They just wanted the power for themselves, not for the people. So they conned some of the people into going with Korach. They were duped. They were dupes going with Korach. That's what I can glean from the speech, which he did last night at Central.
I'm sure that Rabbi Buchtal, you know, really hit that and hit it brilliantly because that's what she does. But I also would say that most populist leaders express their grasp for power in terms of, I'm only doing this for you.
So they say.
I would suggest that there isn't a serious major leader who isn't also involved in satisfying ego needs when reaching for the reins of power. Call me a cynic. Okay, I'm a cynic. But every one of the populist leaders will stand up and say, hey, folks, I'm doing this for you. I care for you. You're underprivileged. You're cut out of power. You're this, you're that. Trust me, when I get full control of this community, you will be well taken care of. And I believe that they mean it until they get full power over the community. Okay?
Sounds like
Agree,
Animal
agree,
Farm.
Rabbi, agree.
And
Sounds like Animal Farm.
what does it take for somebody to run for president of the United States? Does the word humility strike you as a reasonable option?
It's supposed to be.
That's not what I'm saying. You know, humility is not a descriptive of anyone who says to themselves, I can be the elected leader of 350 million people. I can do that better than anybody. And when President Biden referred to the president of China as a dictator, on the one hand, he probably was speaking the truth. On the other hand, folks, where do we have a model of humane, consultative, non-ego driven power positions? Jim Ruxin.
I would say it's democracy where equal representation tends to drive the will of the whole nation. But I want to go back to what I saw as the original sin in this, in that these guys step forward to Moses and say, who are you to put yourselves above us? So it's a power play of the Levites against the Kohanes. And that to me is like upsetting the constitution of the Exodus and the Israelites. In that it's all based upon this the prominence of the Kohanes and the subservience, maybe that's too hard a word, of the Levites and the Israelites. So it's a core challenge to the whole social structure as well as the political and legal structure of the people.
Jim,
So it's revolution they're speaking here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think he's right, sir.
the structure of Jewish life is very hierarchical. The masters of Torah, the masters of law, control much. There is no way that, now this is Stanley talking, which is irrelevant. There is no way that the power of halakha, of Jewish law, can be maintained if the power of the deciding rabbis is limited. From the very beginning, Miriam and Aaron challenged Moses. Nadav and Avihu challenged their parents. All through the biblical material, the only way to express individuation is to challenge authority. Now, let me be very clear to everyone on this lovely call. Never challenge a rabbi, okay? Can we just hold on to that?
How come Risa is laughing?
Well, unless you're married to the rabbi, male or female, don't. The system doesn't work without a structure of authority. And how do you structure authority without becoming autocratic? I have no answer to that. I have no answer to that. I am told that in the world of academia, not my world, that sometimes perspectives on what might be true are engineered as much by the desire of certain academics to control the field as it is to search for the truth. How rare is that? Or is that part of what it is to be a human being? I see hands up. Okay, Mara, Harv, whoever is, okay, Harvey indicated it's Mara. Okay.
How did we get as a people from we have an intermediary like Moses, and we are not to speak directly to God, and God does not speak directly to us, to our current belief where we indeed can speak to God, and what differentiates us from many other religions is that we don't require an intermediary. Because to me, that's what this chapter is speaking to, that the people must listen to Moses because Moses speaks to God, and deciding that, as Korach says, why must we just listen to you? Seems perfectly reasonable in our day and age. Authority aside, the authority issues that we've been discussing aside.
I am, as you started talking, Mara, I found myself slipping back into Yiddish. How often in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, when people cried out to God and they would cry out, Tatanu, Daddy, Tatanu, people felt very empowered to speak directly with God and not to wait for an intermediary.
That's good to know.
On the other hand, there were always rabbinic figures, mystical figures who were understood to have an inside track on that communication.
But there's a difference between understanding that someone has an inside track to being condemned for wanting to speak directly with God or to God.
When you had, and I'm really into, for me, terra incognito, when you have a hierarchical structure, the people who stand at the top of the pyramid claim for themselves direct access, and their power is connected with the way in which they can connect with the forces of the universe. In the old days, people used to ask rabbis questions. Simple ones like, is the chicken kosher? But much more important questions. They turned to the rabbi. There was a source of authority. Then you had a guy like a Rabbi Solomon Freehoff of blessed memory, who insisted that Jewish law cannot dictate to us how we must act, but must be suggestive to us. step by step, we have moved away from authority. Do you, and I don't actually want any answers. I can just say for me, there is no one on earth short of Risa to whom I would grant the right to give me an answer which I must follow.
Oh, that's so precious.
System of authority, of rabbinic authority, of scholarship authority, of mystical authority is gone. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm not sure how a community survives if everything is flexible. Please, we got a couple of minutes left. And Risa, you want to say something, correct me, which I obviously need, but I do want to get to one beautiful moment before we leave. Go ahead.
Just, my hand's been up for a while, and the question is, this is not the only time when we see God swallowing people up in the Torah. Is it the only time that we see God as the source of killing children? Is this unique?
No.
Good question. I don't have an answer. I'm going to say I am not familiar, Risa, with God destroying children in the way that it happens here.
When Moses says, did you kill the children? And if not, go back and kill them.
Well, you know, you do have the slaying of the firstborn.
Yeah, there's another.
Yes,
You
that's
do
true.
have that.
And Isaac.
No, he wasn't.
Isaac didn't happen.
Could be taken the other way.
What
Okay,
about Sodom and Gomorrah?
Yeah, there you go.
well, I mean, they deserve
Children
it.
left there?
Yeah, but the children didn't.
Again, in Sodom and Gomorrah, to my knowledge, nothing speaks about children. I don't remember anything speaking about children. I do want to, okay, Risa, great question. I don't have an answer, but certainly in this case, slaughter of the children is part of the penalty. It is that. Howard, a quick, and then I have to go run to my last point.
I just wanted to go back to, I've heard people talking about speaking directly to God, and I just have to say it sets off alarm bells. And when I hear somebody say they speak to God, my first reaction is definitely to count the silverware.
Okay, and as much as I am as much of a cynic, easily, I'll go head to head with you on this. In certain moments of anguish, people cry out. And they cry out with a feeling that God, someone, somewhere, some force will be responsive to their anguish. We use it in our language. My biggest problem, Howard, is not when people speak to God. It's when people get texts back from God.
That's what I would.
For real.
That's what I have to say. That's what I should have said. Is when I hear people having conversations back and forth with God.
Yeah. Now, God just told me, whoops, count the silverware. Yes.
I spoke to God and I said, Lord, should I steal money from the company? And he said, go ahead and steal.
No, God probably would say, yeah, take, but don't forget to tithe.
Give me 20%.
Oh, God. I agree with you.
Okay, I want to turn to a last beautiful, happy moment in our Sedra. It's a difficult Sedra because it is real. who is in authority, who has the right, who speaks for the people, where are others, all that is good. Now, at the very end, the challenge continues to Aaron and to Moses. And God then says, I'm at chapter 17, verse 21 and following. It's a thing that happens, and I love it, and I want to give it to you. Moses tells the Israelites, the chieftains, each chieftain from a house, 12 of the tribes, right? All have staffs. And they deposit the staffs before the Eternal. The next day, Moses entered the tent of the pact.
Yeah.
And the staff of Aaron had sprouted.
I'll try, but right now I'm in a class. I can't talk to you.
It had brought forth sprouts, produced blossoms, and borne almonds. Folks, if we have trouble determining who is a leader, check to see if what they are doing is producing fresh blossoms. Check out to see if here it says their staff and the blossoming. Check out to see where the people who want to be our leaders are giving us beauty and loveliness and a chance to see the world in a very special way. Do you know the name of the largest Reformed synagogue in Toronto?
Holy Blossom.
Awesome.
Where the heck does that name come from?
I love it.
The Hebrew is Pirkei Kodesh. Holy blossoms. Pirkei Kodesh. And it originally, as a phrase, was used to refer to young priests growing up in the midst of the community. These were the Pirkei Kodesh. If we want to judge whether our leaders are Korach or Moses or Aaron or Datan and Aviram, if we want to look at our leaders, why don't we check out to see whether that which they are producing are beautiful flowers? I love this little thing here. Aaron's rod became a fruitful tree. So here we can set aside the claim of power grab and look to people who want to make the world a better place. And if I need some litmus test for leadership, that's what I want to see. I want to see holy blossoms growing from their work. Okay, I'm going to stop with that, but I really wanted to share that with you. With all of the sorrows of our world, look for the holy blossoms. Judge
Thank you, Rabbi.
by what they do. We're going to go to Kaddish.
Rabbi, before we do, Rabbi Leader said yesterday about Hillel, they wanted the challenge because they wanted to think more highly of the other team benefit than their own.
Okay. Those who have passed away during the past month: Lynn Alston, Max Eisenberg, Sid Mendel, Paul Nesbitt, Thomas W. Sarnoff. Yortsites that have occurred during the past week: Charlotte Adler, Belle Ephraim, Dale Elkov, Roger Bearstock, Ray Barrelson, Sarah Collins, Blakeman, Saul Blonder, Harry Bornstein, Harold Brandt, Norman Brenzel, Olga Brewer, Harry Brown, Irving Kohler, Rosalind Cooperman, Stuart Morton Cowan, Sheldon Dorff, David Duell, Minna Ehrenberg, Milton Eller, Jack Figlin, Jerome Fink, Miles Clinton Feiderman, Ralph Famil, Maya Frankel, Ruth Friedman, Merton Sills Freeman, Rose Friedenthal, Marvin Gans, Leo Gold, Etta Goldman, Joe Goldman, Max Grossflam, Felix Guggenheim, Sarah Gurney, Michelle Renee Hamoff, Russell Nathaniel Head, Dora Hoffman, Irene Howard, Michael Introligator, Harry Jaffe, Alan Kaplan, Lucille Kaplan, Hilda Kaplan, Madeline Kaplan, Joel Karp, Margot Katz, Sid Katz, Sidney Katz, George Kelman, Joseph Kelrick, Stephen Klein, Max Freeman, Sylvia Krevin, Albert Cooperstock, Melbourne Levitt, Sam Levin, Alphonse Levy, Lester Levy, Lillian Lepovsky, Max Margolis, Albert Markinson, Jerry Markle, Matatia Malamed, Ronald Meltzer, David Midland, Jenny Midland, Sylvia Morris, Stanley Mosk, Morris Montley, Eric Paul Nass, Max Newman, and Nickel, Jack Opper, Eugene Pantuck, Isidore Pastor, Albert Pikelny, Melvin Peters, Robin Raymond, Donald Renetsky, William Richards, Richard Ritter, Stanley Robbins, Sylvia Rodsky, Ernest Roseman, Madeline Rosen, Jerome Rosenthal, Isaac Roston, Charles Royce, Julie Silverman Sachs, Paul Schneider, Ann Shore, Milton Sidley, Joel Simon, Jesse Sobel, Janet Steinsapper, Bobby Stern, Sherwin Swartz, Sarita Silverman, Unger, Halvern Vogel, Lewis Wallach, Elaine Wexler, Lewis James Wager, Paul Weisberg, Jill Welsh, Arthur Weiner, Penny Winthrop, Joe Wolf. Bear in mind also the names of all those who died in defense of the United States, those who died in defense of the state of Israel, those who died through senseless acts of terror, those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. And I can't escape the feeling that we're living at a time when violence and death seem to be rising up again, whether in Russia, whether in Ukraine, whether in Israel, whether on the West Bank. It is not a good time for people who love peace. So when we join together in Kaddish and we praise God with the words of Kaddish, let's also remember to plant Pirchei Kodesh, beautiful flowers of holiness. Yitkadal, Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Yamad Divrach Yutei, V'yamlich Malchut, V'chaye Chonav Yomech, V'chaye Dechol Israel, Ba'agala, V'bizman Kariv, Yehei Shmei Rabbah, V'yalam Yomei,
Maya.
Yitbarach, Yitvarmam, Yitadar, Yitalat, Yitalah, Shmei Kudishab, Leila Min Kol B'Shirata, Sushbachata, Damiran Bi'alma B'Imru Amen, Yehishlam Barach, V'chayim, Aleinu B'Al Kol Yisrael, Amen. Moshe Shalom B'Romah,
Yeah, say Shalom.
Aleinu B'Al Kol
Israel.
Amen. Makes peace in the high places. Make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes. Make peace in the household of Israel. Make peace among all the families and nations of earth. When we have conflicts, may our conflicts be the conflicts of Hillel and Shammai, and not the conflicts of Korach. When we struggle to build a better world, join with people who are planting flowers, not people who are destroying. Shabbat
Amen.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you.
Like a rose in the desert.